Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Monday, March 30th, 2026, and today we're doing a whole eggplant breakdown and using and improving the lawn for mulch. So let's do it. All right, happy Monday, everyone. I hope you all had lovely weekends. Ours was busy and soccer-y as usual. Also, it's almost freaking April already. March is basically toast, which after the voice issues I had, good riddance to this month. That little cold snap that we had this weekend was our redbud winter. So in theory, we have the dogwood winter and blackberry winters to go. And then, boom, spring is here, and I hope you all are ready for it. Heck, I hope I'm ready for it. All right, the goal today is to try a full episode. It'll be my first full episode in the month of March. I think that's true. With that in mind, if my voice starts to feel crappy, I will stop to preserve it. That means at any point, the next segment may just be an old segment. But at this moment, I don't feel like that's going to happen. We'll see. It feels pretty good, actually. I just don't want anyone to be like, is this a glitch? Like, what did Jesse do here? So anyway, let's give it a shot and start talking eggplant. So it is Monday, where every week this year we are digging into a single less talked about crop in a series we're calling Planting and Raving. Today, the crop we're going to cover is arguably the most obviously and on the nose named crop in the seed catalog, the eggplant. I mean, yeah, it feels like someone just looked at it and was like, the fruit looks kind of like an egg, especially early cultivars or traditional ones that tended to be white. So it sort of makes sense that somebody would just look at it and say, eggplant. Boom, done. What else you got? I mean, sure, watermelon is pretty obvious, but other languages have great names for this crop, the eggplant. Maybe I'm a little biased as someone who spent way too much time and money learning French, but I like the aubergine. That's a good one. Feels like it matches the elegance of this fruit better than eggplant. But anyway, yes, the mighty aubergine. So I figured this is a crop to talk about now, because if you do plan to start it from seed anywhere near my climate in Kentucky, Zone 6B, now is about as late as you'd want to do that, to at least start it from seed to get a good crop. Or if you're like, I don't have eggplant seed, I don't have time, you can always buy eggplant plants from a farmer whom you trust and get a good crop in the middle or late summer. Now, full confession here, I have not grown eggplants in quite a while for reasons that will make sense presently, but I adore me some eggplant. I do. I love this crop. I love the way it looks. The velvety leaves. I mean, who can blame the flea beetles? It's pretty. It looks delicious. I love the way the fruit looks, like shiny little glass sculptures, and I love the flavor. I love baba ganoush. I like it grilled. I like it in stir fries. Love me some eggplant, but it's not the easiest nightshade to grow because, like I just alluded to, the flea beetles will go absolutely bananas for the foliage. So let's do this. In this first segment, we'll talk a little bit about the different varieties of eggplant out there, marketing, that sort of stuff per usual. And then in segment 3, we'll talk pests. First, eggplant comes in so many different shapes and sizes. So actually, first is knowing where the eggplant is ultimately going to go, like who is going to buy it or what you're planning to use it for. In a CSA, you can get a little more creative with the eggplant selection. You can go over to the True Leaf Market Seed website, which now has the Kitazawa seed collection, very good seed collection, and peruse the green, black, long, short, skinny, fat, white, purple, and even orange eggplants out there. Pick up a few and delight your CSA members with a little bit of eggplant variety. In a restaurant situation, though, it is probably best to at least take the catalogs to the chef before ever growing them and just say, if I grow some of this, would you be interested in buying it? Some chefs will be game, but they may tell you that eggplant is not really their thing, so it's not ideal to make any assumptions on what they will buy before you grow it. And then also just make sure that if you are going to grow eggplant for a chef, that you are getting the one that they actually can use or like to use. If you have a large Asian, Indian, and or Mediterranean customer base, eggplant may be a hot item. We found at the farmer's market, we struggled to sell it for the price that it took us to produce it, or that we needed to rather. So after we ended our CSA, and I think that was like 2021 when we finally stopped, we backed off growing eggplant and just instead traded other farmers, so that I could have my eggplant fix. But what a fun crop to grow. It's prolific and will produce, similar to peppers, all the way until a decently hard frost. I've harvested eggplant out in the field in November when we were farming in Zone 7A. So it can go pretty long. I don't know that I have a variety, like a favorite variety, but if you were going to press me, my preference is to have one long, like ping tung is a good example, like one long eggplant and one squat one, like like Black Beauty, one of those kind of squat, like glass looking ones, just for that little bit of extra meat. That said, your market or cooking goals will dictate much about which eggplant you choose to grow. Also, there are spineless and spine varieties, which is not about their cowardice. Doubt that's been studied, but it's about their pokiness. Spine varieties can be a bit harder to harvest and harder to store and transport because the tops, are likely to damage other fruit. For starting eggplant from seed, we grow them very similar to peppers with one major exception: insect netting from birth. They need that insect netting for the flea beetles. So we start with like the 2 by 2 inch blocks. So that'd be like 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. They require pretty high temperatures to germinate, best around 80 degrees to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 27 to 32 degrees Celsius. So pretty warm, and it even prefers slightly warmer by just a couple degrees, what peppers do. So that's interesting. But anyway, eggplant takes about a week to germinate depending on the temps and humidity. And for us, as soon as they germ, we cover them in insect netting, like I said, because the eggplant is the bat signal for flea beetles, a little known fact. So we will return to the production of eggplant in the third segment, but first, let's see what we can do about that lawn in keeping it for ourselves. What do you say, BRB?
Today's episode is brought to you by Grown By. Grow smarter with Grown By, the farmer-owned cooperative. Grown By is the platform for online sales of everything: custom and traditional CSAs, halves of beef, flower bouquets, wholesale to restaurants, and now Grown By supports in-person sales too. With their new app, Grown By Register, you can supercharge your market and farm stand, finally bringing together your online and offline sales and customer data. Grown By is proud to make local food accessible by processing SNAP benefits online and in person right within the app. Grown By helps you to put your best food forward. Schedule a demo today at coop.grownby.com/no-till. That's coop.grownby.com/no-till. All right, back to the show.
If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere the questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Bob, who writes, quote, Jesse, what are your thoughts on mixing cover crop seed, say crimson clover, with a high quality compost and spreading it on my front lawn with a spreader, then watering it in heavily and letting it grow until quote unquote maturity? I compost my grass clippings, and if this grows, I'd just compost it, but the soil would be better off if I wanted to put a few garden beds on the front lawn. Appreciate you, brother. Bob Saxton, Fatbush Farms, end quote. Thanks, Bob. All right, so this is an interesting question. I love the idea of using the lawn to some extent to fertilize the garden, like in this case, like composting the lawn clippings. But the issue is often twofold. Like one, it will, run out of fertility eventually, your lawn will, if you never, give the lawn anything back. And two, weed seeds, right? But since, again, you're composting it, that shouldn't be a problem. If you were indeed to select a little better for the crop that went into the lawn, however, I could see that working out quite nicely. So a couple things to think about. Crimson clover is not a bad choice by any means, but it isn't going to take, like repeated mowing super well, meaning it probably won't really rebound much and offer much in the way of like a second harvest. That may not be a big deal because the grasses will likely enjoy the compost, you added and pop up after the first mowing quite vigorously. However, instead of a crimson clover for that, I might recommend just a regular white clover or possibly a simple mix of red and white clovers. You might also throw in some Timothy grass. It's not super hard to get rid of that particular grass if you do indeed want to turn that area into a garden later on, but it can be a really nutritious addition to the garden or the compost pile. Now, if anything should go to seed in the lawn, you really don't want to add that straight to the garden, which doesn't sound like it's your plan, but maybe you'll want to use this as mulch if it goes really well. But adding it to a compost pile is always a great option. I love the timing on this question because now that we've been here on this farm for several years now, I'm starting to have some capacity to start looking at options for using my own lawn space a little bit better. I'm tired of mowing it for sure, but I'm also just like underutilizing it as a resource, and I lack good mulch here at present, so very underutilizing. So for me, like I mentioned last week, I think it was last week, I'd like to get a mower collector for our mower at some point soon, but also turn some of that space to meadow so that we can at least get some benefits of some butterflies. Butterflies are the best. Fertilizing a mulch supplying lawn is the biggest challenge because all the best compost that we have on it from our garden, just from our farm, all has to go to the garden. But there are ways like teas and biochar, etc., to help spread out that fertility for the lawn. So anyway, those are my initial thoughts. There's definitely some opportunity there. I wish you all the best of luck on that endeavor. If nothing else, it will be quite pretty. It'll be lush, probably tasty to some deer, just fair warning. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will hatch our eggplant. I'll bet no one has ever said that before. First time, right here. We win. Be right back.
Today's episode is brought to you by Good Agriculture. If you'd rather be on the farm than inside doing your taxes, you are not alone. Good Agriculture handles farm bookkeeping and tax filing, so there is no scrambling at tax time. They keep your books clean and up to date and show you where your farm's finances stand. If you're behind, they'll get you caught up. They also help farmers find funding and stay ahead of grant deadlines. You run the farm, they help the business. Learn more at goodagriculture.com/info. That's goodagriculture.com/info. All right, back to the show.
All right, so growing nightshades is pretty much growing nightshades, which we have discussed elsewhere, but eggplants are slightly faster into production, about 1 to 3 weeks faster than peppers, depending on the variety, and their susceptibility to pests give eggplant one extra ingredient to deal with in production. Peppers, nothing really cares that much about your pet. I mean, some stuff will eat it, but generally speaking, like peppers are pretty pest-free. Eggplant, lots of stuff is interested. But to back up, we grow our eggplant in the greenhouse for absolutely as long as possible and pot them up to get them fairly substantial before they make their way to the garden, where we also cover them once we plant them. The idea here is that we want pretty sizable plants going into the soil so that they can get past their most vulnerable, susceptible stages in the comfort of our greenhouse. Like I mentioned in the first segment, however, it's a good idea to keep them covered from the jump. What I mean is that if you have some sort of insect netting and can cover the trays pretty much as soon as you start to see some germination, you will be keeping the flea beetles from absolutely decimating them. One challenge, however, is that every time you want to water those plants, you either have to bottom water, which is the easiest method, or you have to take the row cover off or the insect netting or whatever you have over top, which inevitably will get snagged on at least one plant in the process of you growing those out and kill it. So just fair warning there. For field prep, the eggplant prefers fertile, well-draining soil similar to peppers and tomatoes. Just rich with a nice layer of balanced compost, preferably a mulch, but not overly nitrogenous, or you risk getting just plant and no egg. Spacing wise, 18 inches, that's like 45 centimeters, is about as close as you want to get, with 2 feet being preferred. That's 60 centimeters apart. So that's one row on a 30-inch, 75 centimeter bed, or maybe you could squeeze out 2 rows on a 48-inch bed. That's 122 centimeters. Though it might be best to just give them all that, shoulder space and instead use the sides of the beds for a crop like radishes that is also sensitive to flea beetles, so they can both do well under the same cover and or insect netting. So plant the eggplant with a decent amount of space, and in most situations they shouldn't need much, if any, trellising, though I do like to put up a single line if just to hold them against the wind. So it doesn't have to be very substantial, but just something to kind of help. If you're growing them in a tunnel where they will really put on some vigor and you'll plant them closer together, then a trellis will be required. The leaves should be kept dry, so drip irrigation is preferred. They are a decent dry farm crop in general, and we have mostly only ever grown them here in Kentucky Zone 6B without irrigation, but definitely with a mulch. That certainly helps. Like, they want the moisture, they don't need a ton, they can do okay in drier climates. Once they start flowering, you will have to remove the insect netting because something's got to pollinate them. Hopefully they are happy and tall at that point, because that is what it will require for them to outrun flea beetles and or potato beetles or whatever else that wants to eat those delicious leaves. I prefer to not plant them too early in the season because they will grow slowly in the cool soil, making them more susceptible to those pests. Then for harvest, once they are done, we usually use pruners to cut them off, cut each individual eggplant off so as not to accidentally break the plant, because sometimes pulling it, those fruits can snap the plant, so you don't want to do that. And we generally just kind of gently harvest them into a bin that goes directly into a cool but not super cold place. So we treat them similar to tomatoes in that way. They like it at cellar temperature, but not the cooler refrigeration temperatures, preferably. They don't store tremendously well, though, so harvest only as needed, and try to harvest while they still have that glossy look. Once they start to look matted, they're kind of over mature, though that will be different for every variety what that looks like. Anyway, what did I miss? Let me know. Otherwise, I think that's it for this Monday that I finally successfully did a whole show. I mean, it's a little short, but you bear with me. We're getting there. Don't forget, No Till Growers is a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That is an easy way to help us out. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Also, just huge shouts to Michelle. She does so much work for us and she never gets enough credit. So big shouts to Michelle. Big shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and my wife Hannah for absolutely everything in the world. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Hello, T. Pick up a hat like the new ones and or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, you sign up in the month of March, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to all of these people who signed up while my voice was crap. You are amazing. And I'm going to botch all of your names lovingly. Tom Arsenault, Maria, Melissa Matteo, Ali Pedin, Autumn, Lollipop, was an easy one. Jess Carr, Alcart. I want to say it like it's French. It probably is not, but Alcart. Teddy, Matthias Silva, Kevin, David Howell, Biram Chapman, Grandma Cookie, Catherine Henning, and Hudson. I've still got more shout outs to do this month, so from the last month, and I just really appreciate all your support. It's incredible. So yeah, hopefully I can make it up to you with a really ridiculous story. Let's see. So in this week's story, we have a lady named Juniper, and Junie, as she goes by, not June, she prefers the little Y on the end. Anyway, Junie decides one day to move to the mountains. She had a terrible divorce. She was just ready for a big old change in her life. So she picked a ski town deep in the Rockies and packed her things, rented an apartment, and headed up there. And it's everything she dreamed of. And, as she drives in the tall mountains, it's spring there. So the flowers are everywhere. There are waterfalls of melting snow. This was obviously not this year out west. And cute downtown where, like when she pulls in and she just feels like it's super perfect for her. So she stops at her apartment that she's rented. It's kind of right downtown, unloads what stuff she's brought. The rest is, coming tomorrow by truck, and looks out the window where she sees something curious. What? Well, that is for tomorrow on The Mountain Towners. That's fun. All right. Thanks for watching and or listening. We will see you then. Bye.
This time of year, the school calendar really starts to fill up. Spring activities, testing season, and that final push toward the end of the year. It's a great moment for kids to stay focused and build confidence in what they're learning. That's where IXL comes in. IXL is an award-winning online learning platform that helps kids truly understand their schoolwork, from math and reading to writing and science. It's designed for pre-K through 12th grade, with personalized interactive content that adapts to each child's level and pace. IXL makes it easy to stay on track with instant feedback and clear explanations, skills organized by grade level, and simple progress tracking. It fits into even the busiest spring schedules. It's also trusted nationwide. In fact, IXL is used in 96 of the top 100 school districts in the U.S. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. Listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/today. Visit IXL.com/today to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price.